Call me Ishmael.
There they are, 3 words, probably the most famous opening in, all of American literature.
It has to be. It's a mic drop before the show even starts. But, with famous lines, we hear them so often, we stop asking what they actually mean.
Right, we just nod. Okay, it's a story about a guy named Ishmael. He goes whaling.
Exactly. The pop culture version is just, man versus whale. But when you actually read it, specifically these first 22 chapters we're looking at today, that is not the story at all. Not yet.
Oh, not even close. We don't even get to the open ocean.
No, and that's what this deep dive is all about, the setup. And honestly, it reads more like a psychological thriller than an adventure story.
Completely. Before a single harpoon gets thrown, you've got this world of crushing depression, terrifying roommates, and some really ominous corporate greed.
That's it. That's what we're unpacking. The damp, drizzly November in the soul, this total flip of what civilized means, and just the terrifying machinery of the whaling industry.
It's the prologue to a tragedy, and if you look closely, the end is already written right here in the beginning.
So, okay, let's start with him, Ishmael. Why is he actually going to sea? Because I think most people assume he's an adventurer, seeking fortune.
And that's the biggest misconception. Ishmael isn't looking for glory. He is. He's looking for a cure. He is running from a really severe, crippling depression.
He calls it the spleen, right?
He does. But just listen to how he describes it. This is page 1. He says he goes to sea. Whenever I find myself growing grim about the mouth, whenever it is a damp, drizzly November in my soul.
A damp, drizzly November in my soul. That's such a visceral phrase. It's not just sadness, it's a climate.
It's internal weather, exactly. And it gets darker. He says he finds himself pausing in front of coffin warehouses, following every funeral he sees. He has to physically stop himself from knocking people's hats off in the street.
That's a very specific kind of misery. It's not passive. It's like volatile.
It is, and he knows it. He knows he needs a drastic outlet. He explicitly calls going to sea his substitute for pistol and ball.
Whoa. So let's be clear. He's saying that instead of killing himself, he's going whaling.
Precisely. It's suicide by adventure. He's throwing himself into the most dangerous job on the planet to escape the noise in his own head. He's not sailing towards something. He's fleeing.
Okay, so with that mindset, he heads to New Bedford. And the vibe of this city, it sounds like the capital of the world, but with this really grim undertone.
It's all contrast. You have these beautiful, patrician houses, fancy gardens. It looks so respectable. But Ishmael just peels that back immediately. He reminds you that every bit of it, every fancy dress, every flower was dragged up from the bottom of the sea.
It's a city built on blood and oil.
It is. He says fathers give whales for dowries to their daughters. It's just wild.
Here's your wedding gift, darling, a dead whale.
It just shows that death is the currency here. So in this city, Ishmael needs a room. And he finds a place called the Spouter Inn.
Even the name sounds damp.
It's a dismal old house. And the first thing he sees when he walks in is this huge, dark, smoke-stained painting.
I love this part. He can't even tell what it is at first, can he? It's just a big mess of shadows.
He calls it Chaos Bewitched. He stares at it forever, trying to figure it out. And then he does. It's a ship in a hurricane, and a whale is impaling itself on the masts.
That is some serious foreshadowing. Welcome to the inn. Here's a painting of your doom. Enjoy the chowder.
It sets the tone perfectly. But before the doom, we have to talk about the chowder.
Oh, the chowder. Clam or cod?
The great philosophical question of New England.
And he picks clam.
Yeah.
And the description. Small, juicy clams mixed with pounded ship biscuit and salted pork. I was actually getting hungry.
Enriched with butter. It sounds incredible.
It does, but it feels like a little moment of comfort before the horror starts, like a sensory trap.
It is a trap because the inn is full. The landlord, Peter Coffin, and by the way, if your landlord's name is Coffin, maybe just leave.
Right. Find another place.
Coffin tells him he has to share a bed.
With a harpooner.
And Coffin is just messing with him. He tells Ishmael the guy is out trying to sell a shrunken head.
And it turns out to be true.
It's true. So Ishmael is lying there completely terrified, and then in walks Queequeg.
And this description is just, it's wild. If Ishmael is the civilized Christian man, Queequeg is presented as the ultimate savage.
Totally. Ishmael is paralyzed. The guy has purplish yellow skin, he's tattooed like a checkerboard, and he's smoking a tomahawk.
A tomahawk pipe. It's a weapon in a peace pipe.
Perfect symbol. And he shaves with this harpoon. Ishmael starts screaming, thinking he's about to be murdered.
But this is the moment. This is where Melville just pulls the rug out. Because this terrifying cannibal,
Yeah.
he turns out to be the nicest guy in the entire book.
He really is. It's the great subversion. The so-called savage treats Ishmael with this incredible tenderness. He's polite. And that scene the next morning where Ishmael wakes up with Queequeg's tattooed arm thrown over him.
Yeah, like a matrimonial hug.
And Ishmael, who is ready to jump out the window, just has this moment of clarity. He looks at this guy and thinks, the man's a human being just as I am.
He literally says, better sleep with a sober cannibal than a drunken Christian.
That is the line. Melville is just flipping the script on the entire 19th century worldview. The guy you think is a monster has more innate Christian kindness than the actual Christians.
And they become bosom friends instantly. Queequeg splits his money with him, 30 silver dollars, declares they're married, which means they're brothers who would die for each other.
It's this immediate, deep bond, and Ishmael commits to it completely. He even joins Queequeg in worshiping his little wooden idol, Yojo.
Which is a huge deal for Presbyterians.
Whoa, it's a huge deal.
Right.
But he justifies it. He basically says, well, worship is about doing God's will, and God's will is to be kind to your fellow man. So by joining my friend, I'm actually being a better Christian.
I love that logic. It just shows how desperate he is for any kind of genuine connection.
He's incredibly lonely. But speaking of religion, we have to go from the inn to the chapel.
The whaleman's chapel. So iconic. All those marble tablets on the walls for sailors lost at sea. It's just a constant reminder of the stakes.
And then Father Mapple gets up to the pulpit, and how he gets there is something else.
He climbs a rope ladder, like he's boarding a ship, and then he pulls the ladder up after him.
It's total spiritual isolation. He's cutting himself off from the world to speak the truth from his self-containing stronghold.
And his sermon. Of course, it had to be about Jonah.
It had to be. But it's not just about a guy getting swallowed by a fish. Mapple frames it as a lesson about preaching the truth, even when it's hard.
Woe to him who seeks to pour oil upon the waters when God has brewed them into a gale.
That line gives you chills. It's a warning against comforting lies. True faith, he's saying, is supposed to be hard and uncompromising. It sets this incredibly high moral bar.
Which is the perfect setup for the guys who are actually running the show. The owners of the ship, the Pequod, Peleg and Bildad.
Oh, two of the greatest hypocrites in all of literature.
They're Quakers, which is key.
Quakers with a vengeance, the book says, and Quakers are pacifists. But these two, they've spilled tons of Leviathan gore. They're fighting Quakers.
So Ishmael goes to sign up, and we see how they work. It's a classic good cop, bad cop. Peleg is loud and swearing, and Bildad is the quiet, pious one who's always reading his Bible.
But Bildad is actually the scarier one.
How so?
Because he uses his piety as a weapon for his greed. When they're negotiating Ishmael's pay, his lay Bildad keeps quoting scripture at him about not storing up treasures on earth.
Basically, don't you worry about money, son. It's bad for your soul, so I'll just keep it for you.
Exactly. It's such biting satire. Bildad pretends to care about their souls, giving them religious pamphlets, but he'll work them to exhaustion for almost nothing.
Right, because they're not getting a salary. They're getting a lay.
Which is a commission, a tiny percentage of the profits if the ship comes back empty.
You get zero. And Bildad, the pious one, offers Ishmael the 777th lay.
Which is basically nothing. It's a fraction of a penny.
Ishmael manages to get the 300th, but then Queequeg comes along.
And suddenly, all that matters is competence. Queequeg proves he can hit a tiny speck of tar on the water with his harpoon.
Barely even looks when he throws it.
And just like that, Peleg and Bildad don't care that he's a cannibal who worships a wooden idol. He can make them money. They hire him on the spot for a great lay.
So they're hired. They're part of the crew of the Pequod.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to talk about this ship. It's not just a setting, it's a character.
Melville calls it a cannibal of a craft.
Yes. It's old, it's weather-stained, and it's literally decorated with whale bones.
The tiller is carved from a whale's jaw. The railings are inlaid with whale teeth. It's a ship wearing the bones of its enemies. It's terrifying.
It is. But there's one thing missing. The captain.
Ah, the unseen Captain Ahab.
The ghost at the feast. We don't see him at all in these first chapters. He's just hiding in his cabin. But we hear about him.
And what we hear is very unsettling. Peleg calls him a grand, ungodly, godlike man.
Ungodly, godlike. I mean, what a contradiction.
It implies he's beyond normal human morality. A man who's been to colleges and among cannibals, he bridges both worlds.
And we learn he lost his leg on the last trip.
To a monstrous parmaceti, a sperm whale. And Peleg admits that ever since, Ahab has been moody and desperate.
But he defends him. He says, it's better to sail with a moody good captain than a laughing bad one.
Which I guess from a practical sailor's perspective makes sense. But then they meet Elijah.
The ragged stranger on the dock. The classic harbinger of doom. He stops them and asks if they've signed their souls away.
He calls Ahab Old Thunder, and he starts dropping these dark hints about Ahab lying like he was dead for 3 days, some conflict at an altar.
It's so creepy, these little breadcrumbs of horror.
Yeah.
And he suggests the leg injury was part of a prophecy.
And Ishmael just tries to brush it all off as humbug.
No.
But you can tell he's rattled. Elijah is that warning you're supposed to listen to but never do.
And of course they get on the boat.
They do, which brings us to the departure.
On Christmas Day. Of all days.
The irony is so thick. And it's not a happy, warm Christmas. It's freezing. The ship is covered in ice, like polished armor.
And as they're leaving, you get this one last perfect image. Peleg is on deck, kicking the men, screaming at them to work harder, while Bildad stands there singing hymns.
Sweet fields beyond the swelling flood.
That one image is the whole book. This chaotic mix of violence, piety, and greed.
That is the Pequod. It's a slaughterhouse, a church, and a business, all at once.
So as the ship sails off, the stage is completely set. You have Ishmael running from his own mind. You have Queequeg, the savage, who is actually the most decent man around. You have a ship made of bones. And a captain you haven't even met yet, who's nursing a grudge and a missing leg.
And a prophecy hanging over all their heads.
It's just a masterclass in building tension. By the time they leave the harbor, you know the whale hunt hasn't even started, but the tragedy is already in full swing.
Exactly. The trap is sprung. Ishmael thinks he's escaping that damp November in his soul by running to sea.
Good, is he really?
I don't think so. He's running towards the most dangerous job in the world, on a ship captained by a madman obsessed with revenge. He hasn't escaped the darkness at all. He's just bought a ticket to sail directly into the heart of it.
His substitute for pistol and ball?